The entrepreneur creates systems that enable him to remove himself from the business so he can be somewhere else. The self-employed person builds the business so that it can support usually a lifestyle. But absent of them in the business, there's no business. So a business is the thing you leave for the world. It's a manifestation of you, your ideas, your creativity, your thoughts. 3 rules to every single masterclass, and I think let's get those rules straight out of the game so that we can get started. The first rule is leave your ego at the door. So amongst us here are people with great levels of education, some with none. Amongst us here are people with a lot of money, some with none. Amongst us here are people, some of you here come from very wealthy families with very connected family members. In this room, nobody gives a shit. You don't matter. None of us do, okay? Guys, and the reason that's important is because you can't learn if you're putting on the mask of society. Okay, so the very first rule to learning anything is to come from a position that you don't know. So in this place, there are no titles. There are no job-specific titles. Nobody here is important. You're just a human being with a name, and we're all going to have an experience. The exchange I look for is that I'm actually looking to learn as much as I'm hoping to give. So I'm hoping that in the conversations and in the discourses, you're going to teach me a few things that I'm not aware of. Is that fair? So first rule, we leave our egos at the door. Second rule, there is no such thing as a stupid question. The odds are, if you're thinking it, somebody else in this room is thinking exactly the same thing. So have the courage to put up your hand and ask the question. We're going to try and make as much time as possible as we go for you to ask as many questions as we like. This is a masterclass. It's not a keynote. So I'm not here to deliver a speech. We're here to have a conversation. Anywhere, at any stage, at any time, if I say anything you're unclear about, you don't understand, you need us to go back on, you put up your hand and you go, what is that? Is that okay? The measure of success for me is whether or not there's knowledge transfer, not whether or not you guys think Vusi can speak well. Because I know that I can. Yeah, well. So that's the second rule. So rule number 1, leave our egos at the door. Rule number 2, no such thing as a stupid question. And then the third rule for me is probably the most important. Have fun. Is that okay? Okay, so the whole idea here is we're going to try and have some fun. Good. Now, usually how I start these masterclasses is I look at... by the way, before we start, how many of us here are business school students? So you're studying commerce, accounting, one of those things. My deepest sympathies. Because you will learn as you go into the world that everything you teach you is outdated. It's true. It's true. How many of you here are studying humanities? Arts, dramatic arts, humanities. You guys are the future of the world, by the way. True story, and I'll tell you why. Because we can teach machines to do everything except be creative. How many of us here are entrepreneurs, run our own businesses as we speak? Nah, wait, put your hand down. Actually run your own business. Not have one in your mind, not you're thinking about it. You actually run your own business. Okay, so we have a few crazy people. You dumb idiots, you. You live in a country that I don't know if you guys know this, but South Africa criminalizes entrepreneurship. In this country, being an entrepreneur is equal to having a criminal record. True story, I'll prove it to you. What's the first thing a person with a criminal record can't do? Get a job. What's the second thing they can't do? Apply for a loan and get credit. You ever try to get credit from a bank running your own business? Banks are fascinating for me, I'll tell you why. Because when you work for someone, they give you the loan. When you work for yourself, they don't want to give you the loan until you've proven for 5 years that you can work for yourself. Which is fascinating because I've never met a business owner that would retrench themselves. So at a risk rating, I'm like, how does this make sense? If I work for someone, the probability of me losing my job is higher than if I work for myself. But that's just the way banks work. So to the entrepreneurs in the room, you have my deepest sympathies. How many of us in this room have ideas in our minds? Like an idea, something I want to do, I'm thinking about it. Okay, stand up, all the ideas people. All the ideas people, stand up. All the ideas people, stand up, stand up, stand up. Now, for those of us who are sitting down, I want you to look at all the ideas people with scorn and shame and disgust as the filth that they are. Ideas people, when you leave here, I want you to remember one thing. Like Usain Bolt, shut up and get out of the starting blocks. Okay? Ideas, guys. Stop talking about it. Stop emailing about it. Stop writing business plans about it. Stop creating websites for stuff that's not there. Shut up and do it. Okay? By the way, there is a verse in the Bible for those of you who are of the Christian proclivity that speaks about where two or more are gathered in my name, I am present. I just want to let you know that he's present. So you have just made a covenant. Now you have to see it through. Okay? I feel very strongly and very passionate about this, and Tabo and I were speaking about it on the way in. We are not going to change this continent with ideas. We're going to change this continent with ideas executed. But guys, there's a big distance between the idea you have and the path you have to walk to execute that idea. The most exciting day of being an entrepreneur, I'm going to tell you now, is the day you decide to start your business. It is the single most exciting day. The worst day of being an entrepreneur is the day after that. When you realize you don't have an office, you don't have a computer, no printer, no clients, no tender, no focus. That it's just you. Okay? The courage is what people lack. We don't have people that lack ideas. Many of us have ideas. It's the strength of character and the courage of content to follow through on the ideas you have. Okay? So I wish upon all of you here that courage, because I promise you now, it will save you. It will save you. One final note before we start. If you if you want to be understood, entrepreneurship is probably not the route for you. Notoriously, entrepreneurs, guys, are misunderstood. It's just who we are. And like a good artist, they're appreciated after their time. Do you know what I mean? So there's as I've been spending a lot of time studying this, and the research we've done, the empirical evidence actually shows us three things. The first is that if you can survive what we call 999, the first 999 days of your business, you're probably going to make it. And that 999 days is about 3 years, give or take a few days. Just 999 days. So for those of you here with ideas as you're starting, those of you here who are running, you know that in that first 999 days, it's very, very difficult. Yeah? The reason is simple. It's because there's nothing there. You're building everything. See this building we're in. I love architecture, right? And I love buildings. But this building we're in is incredible, isn't it? Because we're all in it, and none of us here have a doubt of mind that it will hold us safely. Yeah, none of us here have thought about whether or not the things above us could collapse on our heads. The reason is because the foundation of this building is so well set. So the most important part of the building is the part of the building we don't see. That's so powerful. I'm going to let you guys think about it for like 2 minutes. I was going to let you guys I'm going to let you marinate in my wisdom. No, I'm joking. So when you build your business, the most important parts of building your business are the parts nobody sees. Nobody sees. I can tell you now that probably what I spend 80% of my time doing is the stuff you guys don't know about. It's completely quiet. And it's the stuff you'll probably never know about. But without that stuff, I can't do the magic. The magic can't happen, right? So where a lot of us lose it in that first 999 days, and I want you to remember it, is you've got to focus on building your foundation. That foundation is critical. Foundation is critical. Okay. Without it, it doesn't matter how nice that building is, it'll fall. When the rains come, it will fall. And so for each of us as entrepreneurs, that foundation is critical. And the foundation starts with you. It starts here. You can't build it unless you build you. Yeah? True story. For the first 7-8 years of my public speaking career, I had a pre-stage song. It was the same song every time I went on stage. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in a limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. You guys know the song I'm talking about? Yeah. Biggie Smalls, right? So I watched the Biggie Smalls movie when it came out. And there's a beautiful part in the movie where Biggie Smalls is talking to Puff Daddy. And Puff says to him, Biggie, we're going to change the world, G. We're going to change the world. And Biggie looks at him and says, you can't change the world if you don't change yourself. Yeah. So a business is the thing you leave for the world. It's a manifestation of you, your ideas, your creativity, your thoughts. But if you're not okay, it'll never be okay. And so a lot of us, and in my earlier days, I used to judge people. Now I've learned that actually judgment is weak. You rather exercise empathy, not judgment. Seek first to understand before you ridicule. I then started thinking about, I watch how we do things, especially as those of us who've just started in business, predominantly black people. And the reason is because we do come from a past where you couldn't own a business. Now we can. And we can own big ones, successful ones. We can kick ass. And then I started watching the things we do when we do own big ones and successful ones. And I was like, why do we spend our money this way? Why do we buy these things? Why do we gather at these places so that old men with bellies can get young girls without bellies? And then a few months later, the old man with a belly leaves the girl with a belly and finds another one. Shit. I'm on fire today. Fire. Blaze. And I was thinking to myself, like, why does that happen? And I think actually it's because a lot of us are broken inside. So we don't fix the stuff that's broken. We mask over it. You know, so it's like I grew up without, I suffered, I was told I'm worthless. Now that I have it, I'm going to show everybody. Because if they affirm to me that I am, then I must be. And it's not until you get to a stage where you realize the affirmation is not necessary, that you're truly free. So as you build your business, I'm telling you now that if it's the external affirmation you're looking for, you're going to sickle. You're not going to get it, guys. Did that hit a nerve for you? Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. And it's not unless you walk the journey, right? It's when you are in it that you're like, why don't they get it? Yeah. The world they're losing their minds. Have you ever seen something that nobody else sees, but you know it's there because you can see it? You're like, nah, and you explain it, but they don't see it, right? And in that, the only thing that keeps you sane is if the only affirmation you need is you. So it's kind of counterintuitive, right? Quickly, before we start, I got to tell you this. I'll tell you why it's counterintuitive. Anthropologists and human science specialists both have studied prisons. Prisons are a fascinating thing, right? Because when you're a human being, what we do in this thing called a society, I'm very careful of society, by the way, because society is nothing more than a system of normalized averages. So what it is we all come together and we go, well, for there to be order in any system that can grow exponentially, ergo population growth, we need a system to manage it. And we're going to codify the system, and we're going to call these things good behavior, etiquette, rules, laws. If you break them, we're going to punish you. We have to do it, otherwise there'll be disorder. Like if nobody tells you, sit on the right-hand side of the car and drive on the left-hand side of the road, you're going to sit wherever you want, you're going to drive however you want. And we can't create a society like that. So what society does is it writes these rules, it codifies them, that create the average for the average. The average human being should be like this. That's why your mom says, go to school, get a good education, get a job, get a husband, have 2.5 kids, live in the White House with a picket fence. That's why you're told that, because your mother comes from a society with a system of normalized averages. And then you come up and go, nah, maybe not. Maybe I don't want to finish school. Or maybe I do, but I actually don't want to get a job. I actually want to go through 5 years of not knowing where my next meal is going to come from because I've got a dream. The minute you break away from society's rules, it'll do exactly what they do to you in prison. So check this out. So you break the law, they send you to prison. Why? Because if we can remove you from broader society, we punish you. Yeah? Human beings, by their very nature, need interaction. This is a vital part of being a human being. When you're in prison and you break the rules, what do they do then? They put you in isolation. So just to be clear, to the strongest, toughest, most evil people of society, the single most powerful form of punishing them is separation. It's not physical punishment. It's I'm going to put you in a hole, alone. That's it. And it will break you. That's why people don't have the courage to walk the path of entrepreneurship. Because the minute you're walking, you're going, holy shit, I'm alone. You get it? Yeah? So this thing, hey guys, this thing is so powerful, man. Like if this thing, we've met before, the lady with the green thing. Have we met with the red lipstick? You look so familiar. Somebody came knocking at my room last night, 11 o'clock. That wasn't you. I don't know. It was you. It was you. It was you. So, remember that thing, build a foundation? Critical. The best way to build a foundation is go in here. Okay? So that's the first thing I just wanted to say. The second thing I want to say is, like building a building, you've got to build scaffolding, right? You've seen when buildings go up, they put up a scaffolding around it. And the scaffolding does a couple of things, but the main thing it does is it ensures that the people who are building upon the foundation are safe to build upon the foundation. Most of us here run businesses that just don't have scaffolding. So, if you're not in the business, it can't run. If you're not at work, there is no work. For those people, you're not really an entrepreneur. You're what we call self-employed. There is, although subtle, a critical difference. You see, the entrepreneur creates systems that enable him to remove himself from the business so he can be somewhere else. The self-employed person builds the business so that it can support usually a lifestyle. But absent of them in the business, there's no business. Notoriously over the past 25 years, especially us, this is where we've failed. This is exactly where we've failed. We haven't yet learned how to build the scaffolding so that this building can stand even when the engineers are not here, even when the architects are gone. And that all it needs is a few maintenance people to make sure that it's running. Okay? And then the third thing, and this is where I want to start. Depending on the level you want to get to, the most important thing I think you can actually do as an entrepreneur, usually, is just understand the value chain of your business. A friend of mine who runs a listed company, really, really good guy, said something to me. He said it, and I had to pause a minute. So we're sitting in this meeting and we're having a debate. He looks at me and he says, Vusi, you've got it wrong. He says, businesses don't compete with businesses. He says, value chains compete with value chains. Like, he's a white guy. And he said it and I was like, oh. Like when I default to Zulu, you must know I have nothing going on in my head. I'm just like, what did you just say? You know, so I was like, what did you say? He says, businesses don't compete with businesses. Value chains compete with value chains. Build the value chain. Around the value chain, you can build a business. So then you got to go, what's the most important part of the value chain? If you're running a business where marketing and branding is not important, stop spending money on websites. You're wasting time. You got to build the value chain that's important. You realize that there's things you do every day, businesses you use every day in your everyday life, and you've never seen a website for that business. Like not never, not ever. Not never, ever. But you're on it every day you use this business. How many of you here go to an MTN website before you buy a SIM card? You almost never, right? Because the website is not a part of the value chain. It's an important part of the brand building. This is not a part of the value chain. So then you got to go, so if I were to compete with MTN, and I'm much smaller with less money, where should I be putting my money so I can challenge them on the value chain, not the business? In every business, there's a value chain. And here's how you got to understand the value chain, which is where I want to start. You got to go back to source. Okay. So the entrepreneurs who had their hands up, when I said put your hands up if you've got a business. Quickly before we start, I've got to share this with you. You guys did that thing on Typeform, remember it? The document that came through? There's a couple of reasons we do it. The first is it kind of actually lets me know who's in the room here. This one tells us how many of you here guys are running your own businesses. Okay. Of the 900 and something responses we got, 661 of you are owners of your businesses. Another 194 are majority shareholders. Okay. So these are the two biggest groups, right? Then I go, how much money do you make? And almost always, you're either at idea stage or you make less than 1 million. Which means the work we've got to do this morning is about just getting you out of the starting blocks. A 1 million rand business, guys, is nothing. It's not. Like, we can't even be talking if you're doing less than 1 million. And we are, no, hold on. Wait. Remember, leave our egos at the door, remember? Here's why we can't talk. I'll tell you why. 1 million rand, there's 12 months in a year, so 12 goes into 0.8 times. So you're doing 80,000 rand a month. An average month has 4 weeks in it, you're doing 20,000 rand a week. An average week has 5 days, you're doing 4,000 rand a day. You work 10 hours a day, you make 400 rand an hour. 400 bucks an hour. No, iman kancane, guys.